CEO's blind son ate lunch alone every day until a single dad brought his whole team to sit with him. At first, it looked like a simple act of kindness in the company cafeteria. But the moment those factory workers pulled up their chairs, everything changed. Because this wasn't just any boy, it was the CEO's son, hidden in plain sight, eating in silence while the whole company looked the other way. And when the lunches turned into laughter, rumors began to spread, and powerful people upstairs weren't happy. Soon, one father's small choice would ignite a battle between compassion and corporate rules. Whispers, suspensions, secrets from the past threatening to destroy everything. Was it really just lunch, or the start of a revolution that no one saw coming? And in the end, who will pay the price for refusing to let a child sit alone? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The cafeteria hummed with the usual Tuesday chaos. Forks scraping plates, the hiss of the coffee machine, laughter from the corner where the welders always sat. Ben Carter held the tray steady while Charlie grabbed 2 chocolate milks from the cooler. "Just one, kiddo. The second one's for you." She flashed him that gap-toothed grin that made arguing pointless. They wound through the lunch line, Ben nodding to a few guys from second shift. The optometry appointment had run long, and he needed to get back to the floor soon. But Charlie had been nervous about the eye drops, and lunch together was their deal. "Dad," Charlie tugged his sleeve as they looked for seats. "Look." Near the tall windows that faced the parking lot, a boy sat alone at a 4-person table. His tray hadn't been touched, sandwich still wrapped, apple rolling slightly when he shifted. A white cane lay across the table beside him, its red tip catching the cloudy light. The tables around him were full but not that full. Ben noticed how conversations bent away from the boy's corner, how people chose to squeeze 6 into a 4-top rather than take the empty seats near him. "Why is he all by himself?" Charlie's whisper carried that particular brand of childhood outrage. Ben's stomach tightened. He knew the answer. The same reason the veteran with the prosthetic leg ate alone his first month. The same reason the woman who spoke broken English from packaging stayed by herself until Rosa took her under her wing. People didn't mean to be cruel. They just didn't know what to say. So they said nothing. "Come on." Ben steered them toward the boy's table. The kid couldn't be more than 12, his head tilted slightly, tracking sounds, the cash register, somebody's phone ringing, the scrape of chairs. His hand stayed folded in front of him, fingers laced tight. "Mind if we join you?" The boy's face turned toward Ben's voice. "There's room," soft, like he wasn't used to being asked. Ben set down their trays, making sure they clinked against the table, giving the kid a sound to follow. Charlie slid into the chair across from him without hesitation. "I'm Ben. This is my daughter, Charlie." "I'm Luke." The smile that crossed his face was shy, uncertain, but genuine. His eyes didn't quite focus on them, but his attention did. "You go to Jefferson Middle?" Charlie asked, already unwrapping her sandwich. "I'm homeschooled. My mom works here, so I eat lunch here sometimes." Ben watched other tables, now actively not watching them. A woman from accounting whispered to her colleague. 2 guys from shipping suddenly found their phones fascinating. "That's cool. I bet you don't have to do those stupid state tests." Charlie took a huge bite of her turkey club. Luke's laugh surprised them all, bright and sudden. "No, but I still have to write essays. Takes forever with the screen reader." "What's a screen reader?" While Luke explained how his computer talked to him, Ben studied the kid. Designer clothes, but worn soft from washing. Expensive haircut growing out at the edges. The kind of quiet that came from too much time alone. "You like music?" Ben noticed the earbuds hanging from Luke's pocket. "Yeah, I play piano. Been teaching myself since I was 6. Luke's whole posture changed, shoulders dropping from around his ears. "I can figure out most songs just by listening." "No way, play something." "Charlie, there's no piano here." "I can drum it." Luke's fingers started moving on the table, precise and quick, tapping out a rhythm Ben recognized after a few bars. "That's Sweet Caroline." Charlie bounced in her seat. "We sing that at baseball games." For the next 20 minutes, they talked. Luke knew every sound in the cafeteria, could tell when the fryer needed oil changed, when someone was having a bad day by how hard they set down their tray. Charlie told him about her teacher who had a parrot that swore in Spanish. Ben mentioned the factory floor, how you could tell which machine was acting up just by the pitch of its whine. "Like music," Luke said. "Everything has its own sound." When Ben checked his watch, he'd been gone 40 minutes longer than planned. "I gotta get back to work." He gathered their trays, making sure to narrate what he was doing so Luke could track the movement. "But hey, you here tomorrow?" "Usually." That careful tone again, like hope was dangerous. "Good, see you then, buddy." Ben offered his hand, then realized, but Luke was already extending his. The handshake was firm, grateful. Walking Charlie back to the main entrance where her after-school sitter would pick her up, Ben felt the weight of eyes following them. The cafeteria's invisible lines had been crossed. That evening, Charlie pushed her green beans around her plate. Their small kitchen felt too quiet without her usual chatter about school. "Dad?" "Yeah?" Why did Luke have to sit alone? Ben set down his fork. Through the window, he could see their neighbor's porch light flickering. Needed a new bulb, been that way for weeks. Sometimes the broken things were so obvious once you really looked. "I don't know, Charlie. Sometimes people they don't think about it. But he's nice and funny, and he knows all that cool stuff about sounds." "You're right. So tomorrow you'll sit with him again?" Ben thought about the unspoken rules, the raised eyebrows, the careful distances people maintained. Then he thought about Luke's fingers drumming out a song on an empty table, making music from loneliness. "Yeah, we will." The Wednesday lunch rush hit full swing when Ben pushed through the cafeteria doors, Charlie bouncing beside him. He spotted Luke immediately. Same table by the window, same untouched tray, same careful tilt of his head toward the noise. This time Ben didn't pause at the cafeteria's invisible border. He walked straight across the room, tray balanced in one hand, Charlie's hand in the other. "This seat taken?" Luke's face turned toward them, surprise flickering across his features. "Ben?" "And Charlie. We brought hamburgers today, cafeteria special." Ben set his tray down with a deliberate clatter. "Though I'm pretty sure they use the same meat for everything. Just shape it different." Charlie dropped into her chair, already digging into her backpack. "I brought my library book. It's about dolphins. Did you know they can see with sound, too?" "Echolocation." Luke's shoulders loosened a fraction. "Like bats." "Exactly, so you're basically like a dolphin." "Charlie," Ben started, but Luke was already laughing. "Never been called that before. Usually I get Daredevil references." While Charlie launched into a detailed explanation of dolphin social structures, Ben noticed the shift in the room. A table of engineers kept stealing glances. Two managers near the salad bar had their heads together, one gesturing toward them with her fork. But he also caught Marcus from welding, giving him a small nod of approval. "What sounds can you recognize right now?" Charlie asked, setting down her book. Luke paused, head tilting. "The coffee machine just finished brewing. You can hear the last gurgle. Someone's wearing new shoes, probably dress shoes, squeaking every third step. They're favoring their left foot." He pointed toward the kitchen. "And Rosa's back there arguing with someone about the vegetable order. She does this thing with her voice when she's trying not to yell." "Rosa's our friend," Charlie perked up. "She gives Dad extra cookies." "She knows everyone." Luke's smile was smaller now, wistful. "She used to sneak me churros when I was little, before, He didn't finish, but Ben heard what he didn't say, before people got careful, before distance became politeness. "Hey, you know what sound I learned on the floor?" Ben leaned forward. "Each forklift has its own engine pitch. Tommy's runs half a note higher than Paul's." Luke's whole body turned toward him. "Really?" "Yeah, it drove me crazy until I figured it out. Thought I was losing it, hearing music and machinery." "Everything makes music if you listen right." Luke's fingers found the table's edge, tapping out a rhythm. The elevator here plays a B flat when it opens. The microwave in the break room hums in F sharp. The school bell is a D, Charlie added proudly. We tested it in music class. They fell into easy conversation. Luke told them about learning piano by ear, how he could play entire songs after hearing them twice. Charlie demanded examples, and he drummed out everything from classical pieces to pop songs on the table, his movements precise and confident. "There's this piano teacher," Luke said, setting up what was clearly a favorite joke, who kept telling her blind student to watch his fingering. Every lesson, watch your fingers. Finally, the kid brought her a pair of binoculars. "Here, maybe these will help me watch better." Ben's laugh came from his belly, unexpected and genuine. Even Charlie giggled through her mouthful of hamburger. A shadow fell across their table. Ben looked up to find Harrison, one of the floor supervisors, standing with his tray. "Carter, didn't expect to see you here." His tone straddled the line between observation and warning. "Just having lunch, Harrison." Harrison's gaze moved to Luke, something unreadable in his expression, then back to Ben. Interesting table choice. After he moved on, Luke's posture had tightened again, chin dropping. "Is he your boss?" The question came out small. "One of them. Don't worry about it. I don't want to get you in trouble." Charlie reached across the table, stopping just short of Luke's hand. "Can I?" When he nodded, she patted his wrist. "Dad doesn't care about trouble. He says doing right matters more than doing easy." "Charlie's got my number." Ben kept his voice light, but he meant it. "Besides, we're just 3 people eating lunch." When their break ended, Luke stood with them, his movements more relaxed than yesterday. He extended his hand without Ben having to offer first. "This was the best lunch I've had here." The words came quiet, almost lost in the cafeteria din. "Maybe ever." Ben squeezed the boy's hand, feeling the tremor of emotion there. "Same time tomorrow?" "I'll be here." Walking Charlie to the exit, Ben's mind was already working. This wasn't enough. 1 table, 3 people, it was a start. But Luke deserved more than scraps of company. He found Rosa by the time clock, her gray hair pinned back, safety glasses pushed up on her head. "Mija!" She grabbed Charlie in a quick hug. "You keeping your papa out of trouble?" "Actually," Ben said, "I need to get into some." Rosa's eyebrows climbed. "Oh?" "That kid in the cafeteria, Luke. Tomorrow we're bringing the whole crew to sit with him." Rosa studied him, her expression shifting from surprise to something fiercer. Pride, maybe, or recognition. About time somebody did. She patted his cheek, her calloused hand gentle. "I'll spread the word. Marcus owes me a favor anyway." That evening, Charlie sprawled on her bedroom floor with her school notebook, carefully printing Luke in purple marker at the top of a fresh page. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" "Making a friend list, so I don't forget anyone important." She drew music notes around his name. "Tomorrow, can we teach him our hand clap game? The one Mom taught me?" Ben's chest tightened at the casual mention of Sarah. "Yeah, we can do that." Charlie smiled, adding more decorations to the page. Ben watched her work, thinking about tomorrow, about the crew, about lines that needed crossing. Thursday came wrapped in purpose. Ben felt it in the way his boots hit the concrete that morning, in the determined set of Rosa's shoulders at the morning briefing. At noon they moved like an army. Ben pushed through the cafeteria doors first, followed by Rosa, with her lunch bag swinging, Darius balancing his tray like an engineer calculating load distribution, Marcus from welding, Tommy and Paul from the forklifts, Elena from packaging with her thermos of soup, and old Walter, who worked quality control. The cafeteria's usual hum faltered. Heads turned as the group moved in formation past the scattered tables, past the invisible lines that separated hourly from salary, blue collar from white. Luke sat in his usual spot, ear tilted toward the approaching footsteps, his fingers tightened on his sandwich. "Mind if we join you?" Ben kept his voice casual, but his heart hammered. Luke's head snapped up. We? Brought some friends. That okay? The boy's face transformed, surprise melting into something radiant. Yes, please. Chairs scraped against linoleum. The sound multiplied as everyone settled in, turning Luke's quiet corner into the cafeteria's sudden center. Tommy dragged over an extra table to fit everyone. Trays clattered down loaded with Thursday's special, meatloaf that resembled brick more than food, mashed potatoes thick enough to spackle walls. This supposed to be gravy or motor oil? Marcus poked at the brown sauce with his fork. At least motor oil has a purpose, Rosa shot back, unpacking her homemade tamales. The smell of corn, masa, and pork made everyone lean closer. You sharing those? Walter asked hopefully. You share that piece of German chocolate cake, we'll talk. Luke's laughter bubbled up, unexpected and bright. His whole body had changed, spine straightening, shoulders dropping from around his ears. My abuela, Rosa said, passing tamales around the table. She used to say the best seasoning for any meal was good company. Of course, she also put chili in everything, including her coffee, so maybe don't trust all her advice. Chile in coffee? Luke's nose wrinkled. Wakes you up better than any alarm clock, mijo. One sip, and you're ready to fight God himself. Darius leaned forward. Luke, Ben says you play piano. What kind of music? Everything. Luke's fingers started their unconscious dance on the table edge. Classical, jazz, whatever I hear. Been working on some Stevie Wonder lately. Stevie Wonder's a genius, Darius said. You know he produces all his own stuff, engineers everything by ear and touch. Luke straightened further. Really? Man practically invented half the sounds we hear in modern music, all while blind from birth. Elena nudged Tommy. Get a picture of this. My kids won't believe I ate lunch with this many ugly mugs at once. Speak for yourself. Tommy pulled out his phone. I'm beautiful. Your wife tell you that? Every day, right before she asked me to take out the trash. They clustered together, everyone making sure Luke was centered in the frame. Ben watched the boy's face as arms draped around his shoulders as he became part of something instead of adjacent to it. The flash went off. Then another as people grabbed their own phones. One more, Rosa insisted. Luke, you're not smiling big enough. I can feel you holding back from here. This time Luke's grin cracked wide open. Around them the cafeteria had gone strange. Not silent, that would have been too obvious, but conversations pitched lower. Glances lasted longer. A few suits at the management table had their heads together. Ben recognized the posture of people trying to figure out if rules were being broken. He didn't care. So, Luke, Marcus said, returning to his meatloaf, you ever hear the one about the blind carpenter? Is this joke appropriate? Rosa's warned. It's hilarious. So this blind carpenter walks into a lumber yard. How's he walking if he's blind? Paul interrupted. With his legs, you dope. Anyway, the joke devolved into good-natured arguing about logistics, with Luke laughing hard enough that he had to set down his milk carton. Charlie, who'd been unusually quiet, suddenly grabbed Luke's hand. Want to learn our clapping game? I don't know. It's easy. Dad, show him. Ben found himself demonstrating a complicated hand clap pattern while a table full of factory workers watched. Charlie guided Luke's hands through the motions, patient as her mother had been with her. When lunch ended, nobody rushed. They cleared their trays together, Luke moving with them instead of waiting for the space to empty. Same time tomorrow? Darius asked. If you'll have me, Luke said. Mijo, Rosa ruffled his hair, you're stuck with us now. Walking back to the floor, Ben heard the whispers starting. Did you see Ben's crew? All of them, with that blind kid. Never seen anything like it. Harrison caught Ben's arm near the time clock. Interesting lunch arrangement. Just eating with a friend. Lot of friends. Ben met his stare. Yeah, lucky kid. That evening, Charlie practically vibrated through dinner, recounting every detail to her grandmother on the phone. When bedtime came, she'd added more names to her notebook page. Rosa, Darius, Marcus, everyone who'd sat at Luke's table. "We're going to sit with him every day, right, Daddy?" Her eyes were heavy but earnest. Ben smoothed her hair back. "Every day we can." "Good," she yawned. "He needs us." Lying in his own bed later, Ben thought about needs. Luke's need for belonging, his crew's need to do something that mattered, his own need to teach Charlie that kindness required action, not just intention. Tomorrow would come with questions, probably warnings. But tonight, hope sat solid in his chest, like Rosa's tamales, warm, filling, and exactly what was needed. Friday arrived with the kind of spring sunshine that made the cafeteria windows blaze gold. Ben found Luke already seated, face turned toward the warmth, like a plant seeking light. "Mr. Ben," Luke's whole body shifted toward his voice, "I've been practicing that clapping game Charlie taught me. Listen." His hands moved through the pattern, only fumbling once at the complex middle section. "Getting there," Ben said, setting down his tray. "Another few days, and you'll be teaching us new ones." The crew filed in, Rosa carrying extra napkins as always, Darius balancing 2 trays because Paul forgot his wallet again. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm, like Luke had always been part of their lunch hour. "So I figured out how to play that song you were humming yesterday," Luke announced to Marcus. "The one about the steel driving man." "No way, John Henry?" Luke's fingers found the table edge and hammered out the melody, his voice joining in soft and sure. "John Henry was a steel driving man, Lord, Lord." Marcus joined in, his deep voice harmonizing. Then Tommy, off-key but enthusiastic. Even Rosa hummed along, nodding her head to the rhythm Luke's fingers kept. "How'd you learn that so fast?" Darius asked when they finished. "Everything's patterns." Luke's hands kept moving, playing variations. "Music, footsteps, voices. Once you know the pattern, you can predict what comes next. Like right now, someone's about to drop a tray. Near the dish return." The crash came 2 seconds later. Everyone laughed except Luke, who simply smiled and said, "Friday. They always rush the dish return on Fridays." "You're something else, mijo," Rosa said, passing him a cookie she'd brought from home. "Your mama must be proud." Luke's fingers stilled. "She worries a lot." "All mothers do. It's in the job description." "Yeah, but she—" Luke trailed off, then straightened. "She tries hard, sometimes too hard." Ben was about to respond when conversations around them started dying, like someone was turning off switches. He looked up to see people staring toward the entrance. A woman stood there, late 50s, silver hair pulled back severely, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Ben made in a month. She moved through the cafeteria like water through still air, creating ripples of recognition and hasty straightening of shoulders. Evelyn Whitaker, the CEO herself. Her gaze swept the room and locked onto their table. Onto Luke, surrounded by factory workers, cookie crumbs on his shirt, laughing at something Charlie whispered. She approached with measured steps. The closer she got, the more Luke seemed to shrink. "Luke," her voice carried despite its softness, "I see you've made some friends." "Mom," the word came out small. This is Mr. Ben and his crew. They've been eating with me." Her smile appeared and vanished like a camera flash. How thoughtful of them. She turned that fleeting smile on Ben. Up close, he could see the calculation in her eyes, the rapid assessment of threat levels and appropriate responses. "Thank you for including him. Luke, darling, we should go. You have your appointment with Dr. Morrison." "That's not until 4. Traffic. You know how it is on Fridays." Her hand found Luke's shoulder, gentle but insistent. "Come along." Luke stood slowly, his earlier animation draining away. "Bye, everyone. Thanks." He let his mother guide him away, her hand on his elbow now, steering him through the suddenly silent cafeteria. At the door she paused and looked back at Ben. Something flickered in her expression, not quite warning, not quite gratitude. Then they were gone. "Well," Rosa said into the quiet, "that was interesting." "That was the CEO?" Elena whispered. Luke's mom is the actual CEO? Interim CEO, Darius corrected automatically. Then, oh shit, we've been eating with the boss's kid. Tommy started laughing, nervous and high. We made the CEO's kid learn our dirty jokes. They weren't dirty, Marcus protested. The one about the welder and the... That was educational. Ben barely heard them. He was thinking about Luke's transformation when his mother appeared, the way he'd folded into himself, like origami, in reverse. The afternoon dragged. Ben tried to focus on the production line, but his mind kept circling back to Evelyn Whitaker's smile, sharp as stamped metal. At 3:30, his phone buzzed. Email from HR. The words swam as he read them. Formal reprimand. Disruptive gatherings. Unauthorized photography. Violation of company policy regarding use of common areas. He read it twice, then once more, certain he was misunderstanding. They were reprimanding him for eating lunch with a kid, for taking a photo. You okay, boss? Harrison appeared at his shoulder. Look like you've seen a ghost. Ben pocketed his phone. Fine, just fine. That evening, Charlie helped him bread chicken fingers, chattering about school while oil popped in the pan. Ben let her voice wash over him, trying to shake the email's formal language from his head. Dad? Charlie was staring at him. You're burning them. He yanked the pan off the heat, smoke curling up. The chicken was charcoal on one side. Sorry, baby. Distracted. She studied him with her mother's eyes, that way of seeing straight through his attempts at normal. You looked sad when you read your phone earlier. Just work stuff, nothing important. Is it about Luke? Sometimes his daughter's perception scared him. It's fine, Charlie. Everything's fine. She didn't look convinced, but let it go, helping him salvage dinner with ketchup and optimism. But later, after she'd fallen asleep, Ben sat at the kitchen table and read the email again. Disruptive gatherings. What kind of place called kindness disruptive? He thought about Luke's joy at their table, then his diminished posture, walking away with his mother. Tomorrow he'd have to decide, follow the rules or follow his gut. The choice should have been harder than it was. Pastor Will parked his weathered Buick outside the Whitaker estate, a sprawling colonial that overlooked the river. The house seemed to exhale old money, manicured hedges, circular drive, windows that reflected the morning clouds like judgmental eyes. Evelyn answered the door herself, no staff, no pretense. She wore jeans and a cardigan, her hair loose around her shoulders. Without the corporate armor, she looked younger, more tired. Thank you for coming. They sat in her kitchen, marble counters, copper pots, a view of the river bending toward downtown. She poured coffee from a French press, her movements precise even in distress. Luke won't talk to me. The words came out raw. He spent all evening at his piano, playing the same piece over and over. When I tried to discuss yesterday, he just shut down. Pastor Will waited. 20 years of ministry had taught him when to speak and when to let silence do the work. He begged me, you know, last month. Begged to eat alone at work. She stared into her coffee. Said it was easier than having people stare at him, or worse, sit with him out of pity. Like he was some kind of charity project. And now? Now he has this foreman and his crew treating him like he's normal, and I should be grateful, shouldn't I? But Will, you don't understand. I've seen what happens when Luke becomes a story. Blind boy inspires factory. CEO's disabled son brings workers together. He becomes a thing, not a person. She stood abruptly, walked to the window. His father would have known what to do. Tom always knew how to protect Luke without suffocating him. Tom's been gone 3 years, Evelyn. You're doing this alone. And failing. The word came out bitter. I sent HR after a man who showed my son kindness. What kind of mother does that? A frightened one. She turned, and for a moment, her executive mask slipped completely. She was just a woman terrified of failing her child. Pray with me? She asked. They prayed in the kitchen while morning light painted rectangles on the floor. Across town, Ben lay on a creeper under his truck. Charlie, handing him tools like a surgical nurse. The old Ford needed new brake lines, a job he'd been putting off, but Saturday stretched ahead empty, and his hands needed something to do besides worry. 3/8, he called out. Charlie sorted through the toolbox. Why'd Mom like this truck so much? It's always broken. Ben slid out enough to see her face. Your mom said it had character. Said anything worth keeping needed regular tending. Like people? The kid was too smart for her own good. Yeah, baby, like people. He slid back under, wrestling with a stubborn fitting. The truth was, Grace had loved the truck because it was the first thing they'd bought together, $40 down at a police auction, more rust than metal. They'd fixed it up slowly, between pregnancies and deployments, arguments and anniversaries. Dad, is Luke going to be okay? The wrench slipped, barking his knuckles. Why wouldn't he be? You've been weird since yesterday, like when you got that letter about your job last year. He emerged fully, sitting up on the concrete. Charlie perched on the bumper, legs swinging. Luke's going to be fine. But are we still going to eat with him? Before he could answer, his phone rang. Rosa. Benny, you sitting down? Lying down, actually, under the truck. Good enough. Listen, heard about that horseshit email from HR. Marla Keene always was a policy pusher, but this takes the cake. Rosa? No, you listen. 23 years I've been union steward, seen all kinds of management tricks, but going after a man for eating lunch with a lonely kid, that's new low. I should have asked permission first, followed protocol. Protocol? Rosa's laugh could have peeled paint. There's no protocol for human decency, Benny. You did something good, something right. Don't let them make you forget that. After she hung up, Ben stared at the oil stain on his garage floor, trying to parse what was right from what was safe. Dad? Charlie's voice pulled him back. We're still going to sit with Luke, aren't we? I don't know, baby. She slid off the bumper, stood over him with her hands on her hips. For a second, she looked exactly like Grace. You told me doing right isn't always easy. This is different. Why not? Because I could lose my job. Because I can't afford to be brave. Because your college fund is $300 and hope. It's complicated. Charlie walked away without another word. The silence said everything. Sunday morning came gray and thick with river fog. Ben and Charlie arrived early at First Methodist, claimed their usual pew, fifth from the back, left side, where Charlie could see the choir without craning her neck. Pastor Will looked older in his robes, moving slower than usual, but when he began speaking, his voice carried its usual quiet strength. Today, I want to talk about courage, not the kind that makes headlines, the everyday kind, the courage to sit with someone who's alone, the courage to risk comfort for compassion. Ben felt Charlie's hand slip into his. We tell ourselves we can't afford to care, can't afford to get involved. But friends, what we can't afford is a world where kindness requires permission, where compassion needs committee approval. The sermon continued, weaving through scripture and story. But Ben heard the personal threads, Evelyn's fear, his own hesitation, the weight of doing right in a world designed for doing nothing. After service, Pastor Will caught his arm. Monday's going to be harder. I know. You got support. Don't forget that. Walking to the truck, Charlie finally spoke. Pastor Will was talking about us. Maybe? Not maybe. Definitely. She climbed into the cab. So what are we going to do? Ben started the engine, the old Ford coughing to life. The right thing, baby, whatever that turns out to be. But as they drove home through empty Sunday streets, he wondered if knowing right from wrong was the easy part. The hard part was the cost of choosing. Monday morning arrived like a test Ben hadn't studied for. The factory floor hummed with its usual rhythm, but conversation stopped when he passed. Mike from welding gave him a thumbs up. Jerry from shipping muttered about keeping heads down and noses clean. Heard you got written up, Tommy said at the time clock, not quite meeting his eyes. Word travels. Look, Ben, we all think what you did was decent, but decent don't pay the bills. By the time noon rolled around, Ben's stomach churned with more than hunger. He stood at the cafeteria entrance, watching Luke at his usual table by the window. The boy's sandwich sat untouched, his head tilted toward the door, like he was listening for something specific or someone. Ben's work boots felt heavier with each step. A few suits looked up from their salads. He could feel their judgment pressing against his back. "Hey, buddy." Luke's face transformed. "Mr. Ben, I wasn't sure. Mom said you might not come anymore." "Your mom's worried about me?" "She's worried about everyone." Luke's fingers found his sandwich, picked at the crust. "She thinks I don't know, but I hear her on the phone. She's scared this will become about me being blind instead of just me." Ben settled his tray down, the familiar clatter somehow rebellious now. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're worth whatever trouble comes." Luke's hands stilled. For a moment neither of them spoke. The cafeteria noise washed around them, forks scraping, ice machines churning, conversations flowing in careful streams that avoided their small island. "Nobody's ever said that before." "Well, it's true." "Ben Carter, you beautiful fool." Rosa appeared with her tray loaded with the daily special. She dropped into the chair beside Luke like she'd been doing it for years. "Luke, honey, you going to eat that sandwich or interview it?" Luke laughed, a real laugh that carried across the room. Darius arrived next, earbuds around his neck, tablet under his arm. "Luke, my man, question for you. If I wanted to learn piano, where would I start?" "You want to learn piano?" "My grandmother always wanted me to, never got around to it. Figured you might have some tips." Soon their table filled, not with the whole crew like Thursday, that would be pushing too hard, but steady, quiet solidarity. Marcus from maintenance, Angela from quality control. Each person who sat down made the choice deliberately, publicly. Ben watched Luke bloom under the attention, not pity attention, but real interest. Darius asked about music theory. Rosa shared stories about her grandson learning trumpet. Marcus described the sounds different machines made, and Luke identified each one. "That's the old Heidelberg press," Luke said when Marcus hummed a particular rhythm. "It needs oil." "Kid's right," Marcus laughed. "Been telling management that for weeks." Across the cafeteria, Ben noticed Marla from HR taking notes. Let her. Some things were worth documenting. "Mr. Ben?" Luke leaned closer, voice dropping. "I don't feel invisible anymore." The words hit Ben square in the chest. "You never were invisible, not to us." "But I felt like it. Like people saw the cane first, then decided whether to see me." Rosa reached over, squeezed Luke's shoulder. "Honey, folks who matter see you just fine." When lunch ended, they scattered back to their shifts, but something had changed. The careful dividing lines in the cafeteria had blurred. A few office workers nodded at Ben instead of looking away. 2 junior executives had eaten with a group of line workers at a middle table. "Tomorrow?" Luke asked as Ben gathered his tray. "Tomorrow and the day after that." Walking back to the floor, Rosa fell into step beside him. "You know this is bigger than just Luke now." "I'm starting to see that." "Good, because that VP from logistics was asking questions, the one who thinks unions are one step from communism." "Peterson?" "That's the one. He's making noise about inappropriate fraternization and productivity concerns." Ben's jaw tightened. "Let him. That's my boy." That evening, Charlie waited on the porch steps, math homework abandoned beside her. "How was Luke?" "Good, better." Ben sat down, the old wood creaking. His mom's worried, though. "About what?" "About him being treated different, like a mascot instead of a kid." Charlie considered this, pencil tapping against her knee. "But if nobody sits with him, isn't that treating him different too?" Out of the mouths of babes. "Yeah, baby, it is." "So you're going to keep sitting with him?" "We all are." "Even if you get in trouble?" Ben thought about the note from HR, about Peterson's questions, about the mortgage payment due Friday. "Even then?" Charlie leaned against his shoulder. "Mom would be proud." "You think?" I know. She always said the right thing isn't the easy thing. Later, tucking her in, Charlie grabbed his hand. Dad, do you think Luke knows we're not just being nice? What do you mean? Like, does he know we actually like him, not just feel sorry for him? Ben smoothed her hair back, seeing grace in the stubborn set of her jaw. I think he's starting to. Today he said he doesn't feel invisible anymore. Good. She burrowed deeper into her pillow. Nobody should feel invisible. After she fell asleep, Ben stood at her doorway, watching her breathe. The battle lines were drawn now. This wasn't just about lunch anymore. It was about the kind of world Charlie would inherit, the kind of company Whitaker Industries would become, the kind of man he'd see in the mirror. Tomorrow would come with new challenges, fresh resistance. But tonight, he'd done right by a lonely kid and taught his daughter that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was sitting down anyway. Tuesday morning arrived wrapped in river fog that clung to the factory windows. Ben found Rosa and Darius huddled by the time clock, voices low. They're watching us, Rosa said, nodding toward the security camera that hadn't been there Friday. Peterson had it installed yesterday. Let him watch. Darius pulled up something on his tablet. I've been thinking, what if we're going about this wrong? Wrong how? Ben checked his watch. First shift started in 10 minutes, making it about one table, one kid. That gives them ammunition, says we're singling Luke out, making him a spectacle. Rosa's eyes lit up. But if it's bigger? Exactly. Look around that cafeteria. How many people eat alone? Not just Luke. Ben remembered the older secretary who always brought salad in Tupperware, eating while reading paperback novels. The night janitor who came in early, sitting apart from everyone. We spread out, he said slowly. Make it about everyone. Tables of welcome, Darius grinned. Nobody eats alone means nobody, not just the CEO's kid. The whistle blew. They scattered to their stations, plan forming between them like steel taking shape under heat. At noon, the cafeteria hummed with its usual divisions, suits by the windows, coveralls by the vending machines, invisible lines drawn in industrial gray tile. Ben collected his tray, Charlie beside him for another lunch visit. But this time, they didn't all converge on Luke's table. Rosa veered left, settling beside Gladys from accounting, the 60-something woman who always ate alone with her romance novels. Mind if I sit? These old knees need a rest. Gladys blinked, surprised. Of course. Darius joined two night shift workers who'd come in early, young guys who usually kept to themselves. You're on the cleaning crew, right? I've been meaning to ask. How do you keep the server room so spotless? Marcus, from maintenance, sat with the Vietnamese assembler, who spoke limited English but had worked there 15 years. They pointed at food, sharing names for dishes, laughing over pronunciation. Ben and Charlie still went to Luke, but now they were just one connection among many. The room's energy shifted. Conversation sprouted between people who'd passed each other for years without speaking. Something's different, Luke said, head tilted, listening to the changed rhythm of the space. We're trying something new, Ben explained, making sure nobody eats alone, not just you. Luke's face transformed. So I'm not the project? Never were. You just helped us see what we'd been missing. Charlie pulled out construction paper and markers from her backpack. I'm making signs. Want to help? I can't exactly. You tell me what to write. You're good with words. Together they crafted simple messages while Ben ate his sandwich. Everyone welcome. Pull up a chair. No one eats alone. Across the room, Peterson stood in the doorway, smartphone out, recording or taking pictures. Let him. This wasn't against any policy, just people choosing where to sit. Mr. Ben? Luke asked quietly. My mom's coming today. She wants to see for herself. When? Soon, I think. She's worried. About? Me, you, all of it. She thinks... Luke paused, finding words. She thinks people only care because of who she is. that it's not real. Before Ben could respond, Evelyn Whitaker entered through the executive door. The room's volume dipped, then recovered. She moved through the space with careful grace, observing. She saw Rosa helping Gladys with her crossword puzzle. She saw Darius showing the night cleaners something on his tablet, all three laughing. She saw her son making signs with a 10-year-old girl while eating a proper lunch. She approached their table slowly. "Mom," Luke's voice carried warmth but caution. "Don't let me interrupt." She remained standing, taking in Charlie's rainbow-colored signs. "These are lovely." "Luke helped with the words," Charlie said. "He's really smart." "Yes, he is." Evelyn's voice caught slightly. "Mr. Carter, might I speak with you a moment?" Ben rose, followed her a few steps away. The cafeteria continued its new dance around them. "This isn't what I expected," she said quietly. "Ma'am? When HR said you were organizing gatherings, I pictured," she gestured vaguely, "something else, something that made Luke the center of attention. That was never the goal. I can see that now." She watched Rosa and Gladys laughing over something in the crossword. "How long has Gladys been eating alone?" 8 years, according to Rosa. 8 years. She repeated it like a confession. And the others? Too long. She stood silent, CEO mask slipping to show the mother beneath. "Luke asked to eat alone because he didn't want pity, but I never asked if he wanted friendship. He's got it now. Real friendship, not charity. I owe you an apology, Mr. Carter, and probably a retraction of that HR notice. Just let us keep doing this, that's all I ask." She nodded, then returned to Luke's table. "May I?" She indicated an empty chair. "Mom, you don't have to— "I want to." She sat, picked up one of Charlie's markers. "What can I help with?" That evening, Charlie taped her best sign to the fridge. "No one eats alone," in purple marker, decorated with stars and smiley faces. "Think it'll work, Dad? Making it bigger?" Ben pinned it with Grace's favorite magnet, a small cross she'd bought at a church craft fair. "Already is working, baby." Luke seemed happier, less worried. His mom, too. Charlie climbed onto the counter, legs swinging. "Do you think Mom knows? Like in heaven? About what we're doing?" Ben's throat tightened. "I think she does." "Good, because this feels like something she would do. Remember when she made sandwiches for that homeless guy every day for a month?" "I remember." "She said feeding people was holy work." She was right. "So is sitting with them?" Ben lifted her down, held her close. "Yeah, baby, that's holy work too." Wednesday brought rain that drummed against the cafeteria windows. Darius arrived early, a cardboard box tucked under his arm, moving between empty tables with quiet purpose. By the time lunch rush started, small laminated cards appeared on half the tables. Ben noticed them first, cream-colored rectangles with raised dots. "What are those?" Rosa asked, squinting at the nearest card. Luke's cane swept across the floor as he navigated toward their usual spot. His hand brushed one of the cards. He froze. His fingers moved across the braille slowly, then again, faster. "Welcome," he said, voice cracking. "This says welcome." Darius appeared beside him, fidgeting with pride and nerves. "Made them last night. Used the library's braille printer after hours." Luke picked up the card, cradling it like something precious. "There's more." "This table is open," Luke read from another card. His smile started small, then spread until it transformed his whole face. "You learned braille?" "YouTube videos mostly. Probably butchered it." No, it's perfect." Luke's voice thick with something beyond gratitude. "Nobody's ever—" He stopped, fingers still tracing the dots. Charlie bounced on her toes. "Can you teach me? I want to write my name." "Here." Darius pulled out a sheet of paper and a stylus. "You write backwards, right to left. The dots pop up on the other side." Charlie concentrated hard, tongue poking out slightly as Darius guided her hand. Other workers drifted closer, curious despite themselves. "Each letter has its own pattern," Luke explained, fingers following Charlie's attempts. Your C is 3 dots vertical. H is different. Dots 1, 2, and 5. Peterson from shipping scoffed from 2 tables over. Waste of company time if you ask me. Nobody did, Rosa shot back. She settled beside Luke, her lunch tray clattering. My abuela, she taught me something when I was Charlie's age, said the most important things in a room are the ones nobody speaks. What did she mean? Luke asked. She'd take me to church, make me sit real quiet. Listen to the silence, mija, she'd say. That's where lonely lives. Luke tilted his head, considering. At first I thought she meant actual silence, but she meant the spaces between people, the careful nothing where words should be. Like me at lunch, Luke said softly. Like all of us some days, Rosa patted his hand. But not anymore, right? Marcus from quality control approached hesitantly. My daughter's losing her sight. Doctors say 2 years, maybe 3. Could you? He gestured at the Braille cards. Could you show me this? The table expanded. Questions flew, some genuine, some skeptical, all engaging. Luke became teacher, his confidence growing with each explanation. The dots are numbered 1 through 6, he demonstrated. Like a dice pattern, different combinations make different letters. Charlie succeeded in writing her name, the raised dots spelling Charlie in wobbly lines. I did it. Luke, feel. His fingers danced across her work. Perfect. You're a natural. I'm going to teach everyone at school. 2 hours later, Evelyn Whitaker noticed one of the cards on an empty conference room table. She picked it up, fingers exploring the raised dots she couldn't read. She carried it back to her office, set it precisely in the center of her desk blotter. The afternoon stretched. Budget reports blurred. The card drew her attention like a magnet. She thought of Luke's excitement at dinner the night before, how he'd chattered about Darius and Charlie and Rosa's grandmother. When had he last talked that much? That freely? Her phone buzzed. A text from Luke. Can Charlie come to my piano lesson Saturday? I want to teach her a duet. A duet. Her son wanted to share his music. She typed back, of course. The Braille card sat there, accusing in its kindness. Someone had taken hours to make these. Someone had learned an entire alphabet for her son, not for publicity, not for management points. The cards appeared before she'd retracted the HR notice when Ben's crew thought they were risking their jobs. Just because Luke deserved to read welcome like everyone else. Dad, look! Charlie pressed her nose against the ice cream shop window that evening, breath fogging the glass. They have moose tracks. Inside, she chattered nonstop between bites, chocolate smearing her chin. And then Marcus said his daughter likes piano too, so Luke's going to teach both of us. And Darius said he'd print Braille labels for my school library, and Mrs. Henderson wants to learn, and... Breathe, baby. She gulped air dramatically. It's getting bigger, isn't it? The helping? Yeah, bigger than I expected. Is that bad? Ben considered. 2 weeks ago, he'd just wanted to eat lunch with a lonely kid. Now Braille cards decorated the cafeteria, workers learned new alphabets, and his daughter organized accessibility lessons for 4th graders. No, not bad, just bigger. Mom always said tiny seeds grow the biggest trees. When did she say that? When I planted those tomatoes that took over the whole garden. Ben laughed, remembering Grace's mock despair at the jungle of vines. She also said we just had to water what mattered and let God handle the growing. Smart woman, your mom. The smartest. Charlie licked her spoon clean. Dad, Luke's not alone anymore. No, baby, he's not. Neither are we. The truth of it settled warm in his chest. Neither were they. Thursday morning broke cold and gray. The break room coffee tasted bitter, or maybe that was just the conversation. Whole thing's turning into a circus, Henderson from maintenance muttered, stirring powdered creamer into his mug. Yesterday, accounting spent half their lunch learning finger spelling. So? Ben reached for the coffee pot. So management's watching. Everything. Thompson, A floor supervisor leaned against the counter. Senior VP called it performative nonsense in yesterday's meeting. Said you're making this a union play, using the kid as cover. That's not... I know what it is, Carter. Thompson's voice dropped. I'm just telling you what they're saying upstairs. The break room door swung open. 3 suits walked past, their conversation halting when they spotted Ben. One smirked, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Ben's hands tightened on his mug. The memo appeared during morning shift change, posted by every elevator, every time clock, crisp white paper with the company letterhead. Reminder, employee gathering policy. All employee gatherings, meetings, or organized activities on company property must be pre-approved by Human Resources. Unauthorized assemblies may result in disciplinary action, up to and including termination. This applies to all spaces, including the cafeteria during designated meal periods. Management. Workers clustered around the notices, voices hushed. They're talking about us, someone whispered. About Ben's lunches. Can they even do that? Ben read it twice, jaw muscles working. The language was careful, corporate, cold, but the message rang clear. Stop, or we'll stop you. Rosa appeared at his elbow. Don't let them rattle you. Easy for you to say. You've got union protection. You've got something better. You've got Wright on your side. Wright doesn't pay Charlie's dental bills. The cafeteria at noon felt like a held breath. Luke sat at their usual table, cane across his lap, head tilted toward the door. His smile bloomed when he heard Ben's voice. Was starting to worry you weren't coming. Just running late. Ben didn't mention the 15 minutes he'd spent in the parking lot, debating. The usual crew gathered, but quieter today. Conversation stayed surface level. Across the room, 3 managers sat together, not eating, just watching. One took notes. Luke sensed the shift. Everyone okay? You're all careful today. Just tired, Darius lied. Long week, Rosa added. Luke's fingers found his sandwich, but he didn't lift it. Is this about me? Am I causing problems? No, Ben's response came sharp, immediate. You're not causing anything. But people are upset. I can hear it in the silence. Rosa touched his arm. Mijo, the only thing you're guilty of is eating lunch with friends. Then why does it feel like everyone's scared? Nobody answered. Across the room, the note-taking manager scribbled something else. Ben's phone buzzed at 3:47 p.m. Email from HR. Subject, mandatory meeting. Friday, 8:00 a.m. Mr. Carter, your presence is required to discuss recent policy violations and ongoing non-compliance with the company guidelines. Please report to HR Conference Room B. Failure to attend will be considered insubordination. Marla Keene, Human Resources Director. His stomach dropped. Around him, machines hummed their familiar rhythm, but the sound felt distant now. Bad news? Rosa noticed his face. HR wants to see me. Tomorrow morning. You want me there? As your union rep? I'm not union. No, but you're standing up for what's right. That makes you one of mine. That evening, Charlie burst through the door, backpack sliding off one shoulder. Dad, Mrs. Morrison loved the Welcome Wednesday idea. She said we can start next week and anyone who sits alone gets invited to the big table and we're going to make signs in art class and... That's great, baby. Ben tried to match her enthusiasm. She paused, studying him. You're doing the worried face. What worried face? The one where your eyebrows scrunched together like caterpillars kissing. Despite everything, he laughed. Caterpillars kissing? That's what Mom called it. Charlie climbed into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it. What's wrong? Just work stuff. Is it about Luke? He hesitated. Why would you think that? Because you only started looking worried after we started sitting with him, but also happier, like worried happy. It's confusing. You're too smart for 10, almost 11. Still 10 for 3 more months. She nestled against his chest. Are you in trouble for being nice? The question hung there, simple and devastating. Maybe a little. That's stupid. Charlie. It is. It's stupid and mean. And why would anyone be mad about people eating lunch together? It's complicated. No, it's not. She pulled back, fierce. Luke was sad and alone. Now he's not. That's not complicated. After she went to bed, Ben sat at the kitchen table. The HR email glowed from his laptop screen. His work boots sat by the door, steel toes scuffed from 20 years of honest labor. Charlie's "No one eats alone" sign hung on the fridge. Grace would have known what to do. She always did when principle met practicality. Stand up straight, her voice whispered in memory. But pick your battles smart. Was this battle worth his job? Could he risk Charlie's stability for Luke's lunches? The photo on the wall caught his eye. Last Christmas. Charlie on his shoulders, both laughing at something off camera. Her joy, her trust that Dad would always fix things, always fight for what mattered. Luke's voice echoed, I don't feel invisible anymore. Ben closed the laptop. Tomorrow, HR would threaten. Management would pressure. His job would hang in the balance. But tonight, a blind boy had friends. Tonight, nobody ate alone. That had to count for something, even if it cost everything. The HR conference room smelled like stale coffee and disappointment. Ben sat across from Marla Keene, who shuffled papers without looking up. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. Mr. Carter, she finally met his eyes, then looked away. This is your final warning. The words landed heavy between them. Any further disruptions, any violation of company policy, and we'll have no choice but to terminate your employment. Ben's hand stayed folded in his lap. 20 years he'd worked here, 20 years of perfect attendance, safety awards, productivity bonuses. Now this. Is sitting with a boy really a disruption? Marla's pen stopped moving. For a moment, something human flickered across her face. It's not about, she cleared her throat, became corporate again. You've been explicitly told not to organize unauthorized gatherings. You've ignored direct instructions from management. I ate lunch. My crew ate lunch. We happened to sit together. Mr. Carter, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Hard for who? She wouldn't answer, just pushed a paper across the desk. Sign this to acknowledge receipt of your final warning. Ben stared at the document, legal language twisted around simple cruelty. He signed slowly, deliberately. May I ask you something? He set down the pen. Do you have kids? That's not relevant. Do you? A pause. 2 daughters. If one of them ate alone every day, if nobody would sit with her, what would you want to happen? Marla gathered the papers quickly, stood. This meeting is concluded. Please return to your shift. But Ben caught it, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she couldn't meet his eyes as he left. Word traveled faster than forklift gossip. By the time Ben reached the floor, everyone knew. Some workers patted his shoulder as he passed. Others kept their distance, like unemployment might be contagious. Should have kept your head down, Jerry muttered by the time clock. Got a family to think about. Maybe you should quit before they fire you, added Tom from shipping. Leave with dignity. Rosa appeared at Ben's elbow. Don't listen to those cowards. They're not wrong. I've got Charlie to think about. And what are you teaching Charlie if you back down now? The question followed him through the morning shift. Every machine's rhythm seemed to ask it. What are you teaching her? What are you teaching her? Noon arrived like a test. Ben stood in the cafeteria line, tray in hand. His reflection in the sneeze guard looked older, tired. Through the room he spotted Luke at the usual table, alone, waiting. The smart move was obvious. Sit somewhere else, keep his job, provide for Charlie. Then small fingers slipped into his hand. Don't be afraid, Daddy. Charlie stood beside him, having appeared from nowhere. She wore her school visitor badge, early dismissal for a dentist appointment he'd forgotten about. How did you... Grandma brought me for lunch first. She's parking. Charlie squeezed his fingers. Come on. Luke's waiting. They walked to the table together. Ben set down his tray with deliberate care. Luke's whole face brightened. "Ben, I thought maybe—" "We're here." Ben sat down firm, decided. "We're always here." One by one the crew followed. Rosa brought her famous Thursday tamales to share. Darius carried 2 desserts. The welders came, the packers, even quiet Mikhail from maintenance. "Tell the one about the piano tuner and the fish." Charlie bounced in her seat. Luke launched into the joke, hands animated, voice bright. When he reached the punchline, something about scales, he laughed so hard he nearly knocked over his milk. Charlie caught the carton just in time, and that made Luke laugh harder. The managers watched from their corner table. Ben didn't care anymore. "You know what sound I love most?" Luke asked suddenly. "What?" Charlie leaned close. "This. All of you here. It sounds like sunshine feels." Rosa dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Even tough Darius looked away, blinking fast. That evening, Ben found Pastor Will in the sanctuary, adjusting hymn numbers on the board. "Heard you had a rough morning." "News travels." Ben slumped into a pew. "They gave me a final warning. One more step out of line, I'm gone." "And you're scared." "Terrified. I've got Charlie to provide for. No savings to speak of. If I lose this job—" He rubbed his face. "Maybe I should stop. Luke would understand." Pastor Will sat beside him, quiet for a moment. "You know, you've been a soldier before. That was different." "Was it? You protected people then. You're protecting someone now." "With a gun, with my unit, that made sense. This is just lunch. Sometimes the battle isn't fought with fists." Will's voice stayed gentle. "Sometimes it's fought with open hands, with invitation, with refusing to let fear win. Easy to say when your job's not on the line." "You think?" Will smiled sadly. "I've got board members who hate my prison ministry, donors who threaten to pull funding if I keep preaching about refugees. Every Sunday, I risk this pulpit for what's right." He stood. "The question isn't whether it's scary, Ben. The question is whether that boy eating alone is worth the risk. And if I lose everything? Then you'll have shown Charlie that some things matter more than security, that love is worth the risk." Will squeezed his shoulder. "Besides, God's got a funny way of catching people who jump for the right reasons." Ben drove home slowly, Pastor Will's words mixing with Charlie's voice, with Luke's laughter, with 20 years of playing it safe. The factory lights glowed in his rearview mirror. One more violation, they'd said, one more disruption. Tomorrow was Friday. He'd clock in, work his shift, walk to the cafeteria at noon. And he'd sit with Luke, because Charlie was watching, because Luke was worth it. Because sometimes the biggest battles were fought one lunch at a time. Wednesday arrived, wrapped in unseasonable warmth, the kind of March day that made everyone believe spring might actually come. Ben noticed it first in how the morning shift moved. Lighter somehow, like the whole factory floor had caught wind of something good coming. At 11:45, voices buzzed in the hallways. Workers checked watches. Office staff lingered by elevators. The cafeteria seemed to hold its breath. Then Evelyn Whitaker walked in, not rushed, not scanning her phone. She moved through the lunch line like anyone else, selecting a salad, adding soup. But everyone watched. When she reached the cashier, she waved away the offered executive discount. "Same as everyone today." Ben stood frozen with his tray. Beside him, Charlie, pulled from school for another appointment, tugged his sleeve. "Dad, she's coming this way." Evelyn approached Luke's table, where Ben's crew had already gathered. She didn't sit, but stood behind an empty chair, hands resting on its back. "May I have your attention?" The cafeteria quieted. Forks paused mid-air. Even the kitchen staff leaned through the serving window. "For the past weeks, I've watched something remarkable happen in this room. What started as one person's kindness has become something larger." She glanced at Ben. "Something that challenges us to be better." Luke turned toward his mother's voice, face curious. "Starting today, Whitaker Industries will launch a pilot program." Evelyn's voice carried clear and strong. "Every Wednesday, we'll have Open Table Wednesday. Employees from all departments, floor to corner office, will share lunch together. The company will provide an extra 15 minutes, fully paid, to allow time for real conversation. Silence. Then Rosa started clapping. Darius joined. The applause spread table by table until the whole room thundered with it. Evelyn raised her hand. "There's more. My son Luke has prepared something special for our first Open Table Wednesday." "Mom?" Luke's voice cracked with surprise. "The piano, sweetheart. Show them what you've been practicing." An old upright piano stood in the corner, donated years ago for holiday parties, and forgotten. Darius and Ben quickly cleared a path. Luke rose, unfolding his cane with practiced ease, and made his way to the instrument. He sat, adjusted the bench, ran his fingers over the keys like greeting old friends. "This is called River Dawn. I heard it in my head and figured it out." His voice barely carried. "It's about how morning sounds when you're not alone anymore." The first notes rippled through the cafeteria, soft, tentative, like sunrise on water. Then Luke's fingers found their confidence. The melody built, complex and beautiful, his hands dancing across keys he couldn't see but knew by heart. The music filled every corner, wrapped around every listener, told the story of isolation becoming connection. Charlie stood mesmerized. Rosa pressed both hands to her chest. Even the skeptical managers leaned forward. The final notes hung in the air like a blessing. Nobody moved. Then Charlie broke the spell, rushing forward to throw her arms around Luke. That was the most beautiful thing ever. The standing ovation erupted fierce and genuine. Luke's face glowed pink, his smile so wide it looked like it might crack his face. He stood, bowed slightly, nearly knocked over the bench, and laughed at himself. "Thank you," he whispered into the noise. "Thank you." Evelyn crossed to her son, placed a hand on his shoulder. For the first time since Ben had known her, she smiled, really smiled, not the corporate version, but something true and unguarded. "Ben," she found him in the crowd. "Would you join us?" He walked over, Charlie's hand in his. "This happened because you saw my son, not the CEO's child, not the blind boy, but Luke, a kid who deserved friends." Her voice caught slightly. "I was so afraid of him being hurt that I was the one isolating him. We all just did what felt right." "No, you did what was right despite the cost. That's different." She turned to address the room again. "Open Table Wednesday isn't mandatory. It's an invitation to see each other, to be a workplace that values every person." "Can I sign people up?" Charlie piped up. "I'm really good at organizing." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "I think we'll need all the help we can get," Evelyn said. Tables merged, departments mixed. The senior VP who'd complained sat silent in his corner, but everyone else moved like water, finding its level. Stories crossed barriers. A QA inspector taught Luke a card trick done by touch. An accountant and a welder discovered they'd served at the same base in Afghanistan, 20 years apart. Ben watched it unfold, this impossible moment made real. Rosa organized food sharing, someone's aunt's empanadas, another's mother's pierogies. Darius sketched plans for better cafeteria acoustics on a napkin, 3 engineers leaning in with suggestions. "Play another one," someone called. Luke returned to the piano, this time playing Lean on Me. Half the cafeteria sang along, off-key and joyful. That evening, Gino's pizza blazed with neon warmth. Charlie attacked her slice with both hands, cheese stringing impossibly long. "We changed the whole company, Dad." "We didn't change anything yet. It's just one day." "But it's a start, right?" "Luke has friends now, real ones." And Mrs. Whitaker smiled. "And nobody has to eat alone on Wednesdays." Ben reached across the table, wiped sauce from her chin. "When did you get so wise?" "Must get it from Mom." The words landed soft, without pain for once, just truth, warm and present. "She would have loved today," Ben said. "She did love it. She was watching." Charlie said it with such certainty that Ben didn't argue. Outside, the river caught the last light, turned it gold. Everything felt possible in that moment. Forgiveness, connection, change that might actually stick. Dad? Yeah, baby? Next week, can we teach Luke to play chopsticks? Everyone should know chopsticks. Ben laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Sure, we'll teach him chopsticks. Victory tasted like cheap pizza and expensive hope. Tomorrow would bring what it brought. But today they'd won. Friday morning arrived wrapped in digital venom. Rosa found Ben at his workstation, phone clutched in her weathered hands. Don't read it, Benny. Too late. The blog post glowed on the screen. Whitaker Industries CEO exploits blind son in desperate PR move. Below, the photo from that first Thursday, Luke surrounded by workers, joy written across his young face. The blogger had drawn red circles around strategic points, added arrows with labels like convenient timing and staged diversity. The comments were worse. Using a disabled kid for corporate points, disgusting. Blue-collar photo op, so transparent. Poor child being paraded around. Ben's stomach turned to lead. It's garbage, Rosa said. Anyone with eyes can see. Mr. Carter, a supervisor, stood behind them. Management needs you upstairs, now. The executive conference room felt arctic. The senior VP, Mitchell was his name, smiled like a shark circling blood. Marla from HR wouldn't meet Ben's eyes. Unfortunate situation, Mitchell began. This publicity. It wasn't publicity, we were just eating lunch. Of course, Mitchell's tone suggested otherwise, but perception matters. And speaking of perception, he slid a paper across the polished table. This has been circulating. Ben's mugshot from 6 years ago stared back. The night after Sarah's funeral, the bar, the man who'd made a crack about widowers, Ben's fist connecting with jaw, overnight in county. Charges dropped, but the photo remained. Misdemeanor assault, Mitchell read. Is this really who should represent our inclusion efforts? That was I know what it was, but does the public? Does the board? Mitchell leaned back. Perhaps it's best if you step back. Let things cool down. Ben left the meeting with clenched fists, Mitchell's words echoing. Let things cool down. Monday, 11:47 a.m., the fire alarm shrieked without warning, pitched high enough to pierce eardrums. Not the usual monthly test. This came sharp, urgent, wrong. Ben saw Luke before anyone else did. The boy had frozen at his table, hands pressed to his ears, his cane fallen somewhere in the sudden stampede of feet. Move, move, move. Security guards herded employees toward exits. Luke turned in circles, disoriented by the wall of sound and motion. Ben shoved through the crowd, reached Luke in seconds. I got you, buddy. Hand on my shoulder. Luke gripped tight, trembling. Ben guided him through the chaos, calling out to clear a path, made it halfway to the exit when someone, he never saw who, shouted, Carter's making it worse. He's blocking people. The security footage would later show Ben doing exactly what he should, evacuating a disabled person safely. But in the moment, in the noise and confusion, perception became reality. By 2 o'clock, Ben sat in HR again. Suspended pending investigation, Marla read from her screen. The drill revealed safety concerns about unauthorized assistance. I helped a blind child during an emergency. You inserted yourself into a situation where trained personnel? What trained personnel? Everyone was running. Marla's fingers tapped her desk. I'm sorry, Ben. It's done. Collect your things. You'll be contacted about the investigation timeline. The walk to his locker stretched forever. Workers watched from doorways. Some offered sympathetic nods. Others looked away. His steel-toed boots echoed in the sudden quiet. The email went company-wide at 3:15 p.m. Due to recent safety concerns and external pressures, the Open Table Wednesday pilot program is suspended indefinitely. Regular lunch schedules resume immediately. Evelyn Whitaker's digital signature looked cold at the bottom. Rosa called Ben an hour later. Luke won't come to the cafeteria at all now. His mother brings him lunch in her office. The victory of last week felt like a different lifetime. Charlie found him at the kitchen table that evening, suspension letter spread before him like a map to nowhere. "What's wrong, Daddy? How did you explain corporate politics to a 10-year-old? How did you tell her that doing right could cost everything?" "There was trouble at work. I have to stay home for a while." She slid into his lap, small hands covering his rough ones. "Is it about Luke?" "Yeah, baby." "Are people being mean to him again?" "In a different way." Charlie was quiet for a long moment, then fierce and certain. "We can't give up on Luke." "Charlie." "No, Dad. Remember what you told me when Mom died? That giving up is the only real failure?" Her brown eyes blazed with inherited stubbornness. "Luke needs us. Even if they say we can't help, even if you lose your job, even if—" Her voice cracked slightly. "Even if it's scary." Ben pulled her close, breathed in her strawberry shampoo and certainty. "You're right," he whispered. "So what do we do?" He didn't know. The weight of bills, reputation, responsibility pressed down, but Charlie's hand in his felt like an anchor and a compass, both. Outside, the river ran dark under streetlights. The cafeteria would be cold tomorrow, divided again into invisible territories. Luke would eat in his mother's office, isolated by protection. The brief dream of Open Table Wednesday would fade into corporate memory. But Charlie was right. They couldn't give up, not on Luke, not on what they'd started, not on the truth that everyone deserved a place at the table. "We pray," Ben said finally. "Then we figure it out." Charlie nodded solemnly. "Should we pray now?" So they did, right there at the kitchen table, while the suspension letter lay between them like a challenge waiting to be answered. Monday night stretched like taffy, each minute pulling thinner and stickier than the last. The kitchen table held Ben's new reality: suspension letter on the left, stack of bills on the right, electric, water. Charlie's school lunch account, the truck payment already 2 weeks behind. From her room came the soft rhythm of Charlie's breathing. She'd fallen asleep clutching her notebook, the one where she'd been practicing Luke's name in Braille using dots from a hole punch. Ben had found her at it for an hour after dinner, tongue poking out in concentration. The house wrapped around him like a tomb. No factory hum, no clatter of machinery, no Rosa's laugh echoing off concrete walls, just the tick of Sarah's grandmother's clock on the mantel, the one thing he'd kept after selling everything else to pay medical bills. He pressed palms against his eyes until stars bloomed. The refrigerator kicked on with its familiar rattle. Outside, a dog barked 3 streets over. "Lord!" The word came out cracked, unused. Ben hadn't prayed aloud since Sarah's funeral, hadn't needed to. His prayers lived in his hands, in the work, in the care of machines and men. "Lord, I don't know if I've ruined us or helped us." The admission hung in the dark kitchen. He stared at the suspension letter, at the corporate language designed to wound without bleeding, pending investigation, safety protocols, disruption of emergency procedures. In Kandahar, he'd known the enemy, seen the muzzle flash, heard the RPG whistle. You could fight what you could see. But this battle happened in conference rooms he'd never enter, in emails he'd never read, in whispers that slithered through break rooms like gas. "I tried to do right, tried to show Charlie how to stand up for people." His voice caught. "Now I might lose the only job that keeps us whole." The prayer felt rusty, mechanical, like trying to start an engine left too long in winter. But somewhere beneath the fear, beneath the anger at Mitchell's shark smile and Marla's downcast eyes, something else stirred. Not peace, exactly. More like recognition. This was still a fight. Different battlefield, same war, the one between who gets seen and who gets forgotten. "Help me see the way through, not for me, for Charlie, for Luke, for all of them eating alone while the world pretends not to notice." The clock ticked toward midnight. Ben folded the bills into neat squares, placed them back in the drawer. Tomorrow would still come. The suspension would still stand. But tonight, he'd named the fear. That had to count for something. Tuesday morning arrived gray and reluctant. Charlie hummed in the shower, off-key but earnest, some pop song about not giving up. Ben scrambled eggs, added the last of the cheese, packed her lunch with careful hands. Sandwich, apple, the good cookies he'd been saving. "You okay, Daddy?" She appeared in the doorway, hair still damp. "Right as rain, baby." She studied him with those Sarah eyes, seeing too much. "You were up late." "Just thinking." "About Luke?" "About lots of things." The drive to school took 12 minutes. Charlie filled it with chatter about her science project on sound waves, how Luke would love learning how music moved through air like invisible ribbons. Ben let her voice wash over him, storing it up for the empty hours ahead. "Love you, Daddy." She kissed his cheek at the drop-off, backpack bouncing. "Love you, too." He watched until she disappeared through the double doors. Other parents rushed past, heading to jobs he might not have anymore. The truck felt hollow without her. The phone rang before he'd left the parking lot. "Ben?" Pastor Will's voice carried its usual calm. "Come see me." Not a question. His church office smelled like old coffee and older books. Pastor Will looked exactly as he had for 20 years. Silver hair, bent shoulders, eyes that had seen too much and still chose kindness. "Heard about yesterday." "News travels." "Always does." Will poured coffee from a pot that might have been brewing since Sunday. "Suspension's rough." "Charlie needs stability. I can't—" Ben stopped, swallowed. "I can't fail her. Not after Sarah." "You think standing up for that boy was failing?" "If I lose this job?" "You showed your daughter what courage looks like." "That's not failure, son. That's fatherhood." They sat in silence. Outside, a cardinal pecked at the window, determined to fight its own reflection. "My first year back from Da Nang," Will said finally, "I got into it with a grocery store manager. Saw him following a Vietnamese family around, making them uncomfortable. I made a scene, got banned from the store. My wife had to drive 2 towns over for groceries for 6 months. What happened? Store changed management eventually. New owner's daughter married a Vietnamese man. Now they sponsor refugee families." Will smiled. "Sometimes the fight takes longer than we want. Doesn't mean it's not worth fighting. This feels different, invisible, like fighting smoke. You've loved loudly, son. Nothing wrong with that. Now love wisely." Will leaned forward. "Don't throw fists. Show hands open with grace. Let them see what they're really fighting against. Basic human decency." Ben left with something settling in his chest. Not peace, not yet, but resolve, quiet and steady as a heartbeat. That evening, the kitchen filled with steam and the smell of tomatoes. Ben cooked Sarah's spaghetti recipe from memory, the one she'd learned from his Italian grandmother. Charlie sat at the table, math homework spread like battle plans. "Carry the 7, he said, looking over her shoulder. "I hate long division. But you're good at it. Doesn't mean I like it." They worked through problems together, his rough fingers guiding her pencil. This was still his job, being her father. Whatever happened with Whitaker Industries, with Mitchell's sneers and HR's cold efficiency, this remained, this table, this child, this chance to show her how to stand up after getting knocked down. "Dad?" Charlie looked up from her fractions. "Luke's probably eating alone again, isn't he?" "Probably." "That's not right." "No, baby, it's not." She returned to her math, pencil scratching. Ben watched her work, this fierce-hearted girl who'd inherited her mother's compassion and his own stubborn streak. Whatever came next, she'd be ready. He'd make sure of it. The night settled around them, gentle as a benediction. Tomorrow would bring its own battles. But tonight, there was spaghetti and homework and the sound of his daughter humming off-key. Tonight, that was enough. Tuesday morning crawled through the Whitaker Industries campus like fog off the river. Luke sat in his mother's office, a Nature Valley bar crumbling between his fingers. The wrapper crinkled too loud in the silence. The cafeteria's right downstairs. Evelyn's voice carried that careful neutrality she used in board meetings. I'm fine here. Luke. I said I'm fine. She watched her son navigate the familiar space, 3 steps to the leather couch, hand trailing the wall. He'd mapped this room years ago, every corner memorized. Safe territory. Mr. Mitchell called again. She kept her tone light, testing. Says we need to make a statement about the incident. Luke's jaw tightened. What kind of statement? That the disruption during the drill was unacceptable, that we're reviewing our policies. Ben didn't disrupt anything. Honey, I know you like him, but... Mom. Luke turned toward her voice with precision that still startled her sometimes. I need to talk to him. That's not possible. He's suspended pending... Then unsuspend him just for an hour. His fingers found the piano app on his phone, tapped out a nervous melody. Please. The executives were waiting for her response to the blogger, to the whole mess. Mitchell had practically salivated during yesterday's emergency meeting, talking about liability and company image. But here sat her son, asking for something with a firmness she'd never heard before. I'll arrange something, she heard herself say. The conference room's glass walls made everything fishbowl bright. Ben arrived in his good jeans and the polo shirt Charlie had given him for Father's Day. His hand stayed steady, but Evelyn noticed the careful way he moved, a man walking through a minefield. Luke sat across the mahogany table, cane propped against his chair. No sunglasses today. His gray eyes, clouded but somehow still expressive, stayed fixed on a point just past Ben's shoulder. Thank you for coming, Evelyn's professional voice, the one that built walls. Course. They sat. The afternoon sun sliced through the blinds, painting ladder shadows on the wall. Luke's hand found the table's edge. When the alarm went off yesterday, I froze. Ben leaned forward slightly, said nothing. Everything got loud. People running, chairs, scraping. Someone knocked my cane under something. I heard it skitter away. Luke's voice trembled but pushed on. I couldn't tell which way was out. The sound bounced off everything. Evelyn's chest tightened. She'd been in Munich when it happened, hadn't seen the footage yet. But then, Luke's chin lifted. Someone grabbed my hand. Not rough, just there, steady. They said, I got you, buddy. We're walking straight ahead, nice and easy. And we did. Through all that noise and panic, we just walked. Ben's eyes glistened. Mom thinks you caused problems during the drill. Luke turned toward Evelyn with uncanny accuracy. But you didn't make me feel unsafe. You never have. You held my hand. You always do. The words hung in the climate-controlled air. Evelyn stared at her son, really looked at him. When had he grown so sure of his own voice? The door opened. Darius entered, carrying a laptop. Rosa right behind him. Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Whitaker. Darius set the laptop on the table. But you need to see this. This is a private meeting. Huh? It's the security footage from yesterday. Rosa's tone brooked no argument. Every second of that drill. Darius turned the screen toward Evelyn. The timestamp read 14:32:15. The cafeteria captured from above in grainy black and white. The alarm started, visible in the way everyone's heads snapped up simultaneously. There, Darius pointed. That's Mr. Mitchell's assistant, Bradley. On screen, Bradley burst through the emergency exit, propping it open with a chair. The wrong exit. The one that led to the loading dock, not the assembly point. He's not supposed to... Evelyn leaned closer. Keep watching. People fled toward Bradley's exit, following his fluorescent vest. The crowd bottlenecked. Someone fell. An older woman from accounting. Bodies piled up at the too narrow door. Now look here. Rosa pointed to the main entrance. Ben moved against the crowd, one hand on Luke's elbow, the other clearing a path. Calm. Methodical. He guided Luke through the proper exit, then went back for the woman who'd fallen. He got 17 people out the right way. Darius pulled up another file. Here's Bradley's incident report. Says Mr. Carter caused dangerous confusion by not following the evacuation leader. But Bradley led them wrong. Evelyn's voice came out flat. Into a loading dock with 2 trucks backing up. Rosa crossed her arms. If Ben hadn't redirected people— Evelyn watched the loop again, her son's face pale with panic, until Ben's hand found him. The methodical way Ben moved, like a man who'd evacuated under fire before, which she remembered from his file, he had. Afghanistan, 3 tours. "Mom?" Luke's voice pulled her back. "You're awfully quiet." She closed the laptop, looked at her son, at Ben, at these 2 workers who'd risked their own jobs to bring her truth. "Mr. Carter," each word felt like lifting stones. "I owe you an apology." That night, Evelyn sat on Luke's bed. His keyboard lay across his lap, fingers finding melodies in the dark. "You were brave today," she said. "I was scared." Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means speaking up anyway. His fingers stilled. "Ben taught me that. And Rosa and Darius. They all just treat me normal." "I know." She touched his hand. "I'm proud of you." Miles away, Ben tucked Charlie into bed. She'd peppered him with questions about the meeting, about Luke, about when he could go back to work. "Soon, baby. I think soon." "Good," she yawned. "Luke needs you." After she slept, Ben sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold. For the first time since that suspension letter, the weight on his chest lifted. Not gone, not yet, but lighter. Hope felt like a dangerous thing. But tonight, he let himself hold it anyway, careful as cradling eggs, steady as a hand reaching through chaos to say, "I got you, buddy. We're walking straight ahead." Wednesday morning came sharp and bright. Evelyn Whitaker arrived at Whitaker Industries before sunrise, the parking lot empty except for third-shift stragglers heading home. She'd barely slept, watching that security footage loop in her mind, her son's terror, Ben's steady hand, Bradley's dangerous incompetence. At 7 sharp, she convened the emergency leadership meeting, the conference room filled with bleary executives clutching coffee cups. VP Mitchell arrived last, straightening his tie with practiced arrogance. "Thank you all for coming." Evelyn remained standing. "We need to discuss Monday's evacuation." "Already handled," Mitchell waved dismissively. "The disruptive employee has been suspended." "You're right, there was a disruptive employee." Evelyn opened her laptop, turned it toward the room. "Watch." The footage played. Bradley's fluorescent vest, leading workers toward the loading dock, the bottleneck, the woman falling, Ben moving against chaos, guiding Luke, returning for others. Mitchell's face drained of color. "Your assistant caused this." Evelyn's voice could have frozen the river outside. "And you blamed the man who prevented injuries, maybe deaths. Now, Evelyn, let's not be dramatic, so you used my son's disability as cover for your incompetence." She closed the laptop with a snap. "Security is already at your office. You have 30 minutes to clear out." Mitchell stood, mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. 29 minutes now. After he fled, Evelyn addressed the remaining executives. "We've been failing, not just Monday. Every day we let people feel invisible in our own building. That changes now." By noon, Ben sat across from Evelyn in her office. Same chair where he'd been suspended. Different woman behind the desk, or maybe the same woman finally letting herself be seen. "Mr. Carter," she folded her hands on the mahogany surface, "I owe you an apology. You and my son." Ben waited. Apologies from executives usually came with conditions. "I was so afraid of Luke being pitied that I couldn't see he was being isolated." Her voice cracked slightly. "You saw what I refused to, and you acted when I wouldn't." "Just did what felt right, ma'am." "Please, call me Evelyn." She pulled out a folder. "Your suspension is reversed, effective immediately. Full back pay, commendation in your file, but I need something more from you." Here it comes, Ben thought. The catch. This inclusion program, Open Table Wednesday, it failed because we imposed it from above, made it mine instead of everyone's. She met his eyes. "Help me fix it. not as management's project, as something real, from the ground up. Ben studied her face, found sincerity where he'd expected corporate polish. It can't be about Luke or any one person. Agreed. And the floor workers need real say, not token representation. That's why I want Rosa Delgado and Darius Miles as co-chairs of an Employee Inclusion Council, equal authority, direct report to me. Ben leaned back. Rosa's gonna love that. Darius, too. There's more. We rename it. Open table, open door. Voluntary participation, cross-department lunches, but also education. Disability etiquette training that actually means something. Sessions where people share stories. Veterans, immigrants, anyone who's felt shut out. That's... Ben searched for words. That's actually good. One more thing. Evelyn pulled out another paper. I'm creating a position. Community Liaison for Inclusion and Veterans Outreach. Full benefits, same pay grade as middle management, but you can keep your steel toes if you want. A small smile. The job's yours if you want it. Ben stared at the offer. Management money without abandoning his people. Can I think on it? Take your time. But Ben, she stood, extended her hand. Thank you for seeing my son when I couldn't. That afternoon, word spread through the plant like flame on oil. Mitchell was gone. Ben was back. Real change coming, not executive window dressing. Rosa found Ben at his locker, threw her arms around him in a crushing hug. You beautiful fool! She pulled back, eyes bright with tears. Co-chair? Me? They want my opinion on something besides union grievances? You and Darius both. That boy's gonna flip. She grabbed Ben's shoulders. You know what you just did? You helped us change the soul of this place. The actual soul. Darius appeared around the corner, moving fast. Mr. Carter, is it true? About the council? True as steel. The young engineer's professional composure cracked into a huge grin. My mom's gonna cry. Her son, helping run inclusion at Whitaker Industries. You earned it. Ben clapped his shoulder. Those Braille cards started something bigger than you know. That evening, Ben stirred chili on the stove while Charlie did homework at the kitchen table. The smell of cumin and tomatoes filled their small kitchen. So you're not fired? Charlie asked for the third time. Not fired. Actually, they offered me a promotion. Her pencil stopped moving. Like a boss? Kind of. Helping make sure everyone feels welcome at work. Charlie jumped up, threw her arms around his waist. I knew it. I knew they'd see what I see. What's that, baby? That you're the best dad who helps everyone. She pulled back. Can I make a poster for your new office? Open doors, open hearts? Ben laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. I think that's perfect. As they ate, Charlie chattered about poster designs and Braille lessons and whether Luke could teach her piano. Ben listened, watched his daughter's animated face, and felt something settle in his chest. They'd fought for a seat at the table. Now they were building bigger tables. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Monday morning arrived without fanfare. No corporate emails, no photographers, just Rosa standing by the cafeteria entrance with a clipboard, greeting people like she'd been born for this. Table assignments are suggestions, not rules, she told everyone who walked past. Sit where your heart tells you. Darius had spent the weekend printing new table cards, simple ones that read all welcome in 3 languages and Braille. No logos, no corporate speak, just invitation. Ben arrived with Charlie 20 minutes before his shift. She wore her best school dress, the one with sunflowers, and carried a folded paper in her pocket. You nervous, baby? A little. She touched the paper. What if they don't like it? They will. The cafeteria filled gradually. Factory workers claimed tables next to accountants. The maintenance crew sat with IT. Natural, unforced, like water finding its level. Luke entered with his mother, but this time Evelyn didn't guide him. He navigated himself, cane-sweeping practiced arcs, until he reached a table near the piano, not the window seat where he'd hidden before, right in the heart of the room. Ben, Luke's face turned toward his voice. "You're here. Wouldn't miss it." Charlie slipped into the seat beside Luke. "I wrote something. For later. Can't wait to hear it." The room filled steadily. No rush, no spectacle. Tom from shipping sat with Margaret from accounting. They discovered their kids went to the same school. Abdul from maintenance shared coffee with Jerry, the Vietnam vet from the loading dock. Small conversations bloomed. Rosa moved through the room, not orchestrating, but encouraging. When she saw Phyllis from HR sitting alone, she pulled up a chair. "Mind if I join you? Been meaning to ask about your grandson." Darius found himself at a table with 3 senior engineers who'd never acknowledged him before. One asked about his Braille cards. Soon they were discussing adaptive technology, barriers dropping with each exchanged idea. At 12:30, Rosa stood near the piano, not on a stage or platform, just stood. "Welcome, everyone, to our first real Open Table Monday," she smiled. "No speeches, no politics. Just want to remind you what this is. A chance to eat with somebody new, learn a name, share a story. That's it." She sat back down. The room relaxed into itself. Ben watched Luke across the table. The boy's head tilted, tracking conversations around him, no longer straining to hear if people were talking about him, just listening to the life of the room. "It sounds different," Luke said. "How so?" "Warmer. Like," he searched for words, "like when lots of people are cooking in the same kitchen." Charlie giggled. "That's exactly what it's like." Midway through lunch, Luke stood and made his way to the piano. No announcement. He just sat and began to play, a simple melody, sweet and unhurried, not a performance. More like someone humming while they worked. The cafeteria didn't stop to listen. People kept eating, talking, but the music became part of the room's texture. A woman from purchasing swayed slightly. 2 guys from the night shift tapped their feet. When Luke finished, he said quietly, "I call that one home." Scattered applause, warm but not overwhelming. Luke smiled and returned to his seat. Charlie stood then, paper trembling in her hands. "Luke's mom said I could read something." The room quieted, not silent, just attentive. "I wrote this for school, but wanted to share it here." She cleared her throat. "It's called Seeing Different." She read in her clear 10-year-old voice. "My friend Luke sees with his ears and his hands. He knows who's walking by how their shoes sound. He can tell if you're sad by how you breathe. I'm learning that seeing isn't just about eyes. It's about paying attention. When you really see someone, they stop being invisible." When Luke taught me this, I realized lots of people feel invisible. The lunch lady who nobody thanks, the old man at the bus stop, my dad, sometimes when people only see his uniform and not his heart. But here's what I learned. We can all choose to see better. We just have to try. She folded the paper quickly, cheeks red. The applause came soft at first, then stronger. Not the orchestrated thunder of corporate events. Real appreciation, some people wiping their eyes. Luke reached over and squeezed Charlie's hand. That was perfect. Evelyn watched from her spot against the wall. She'd chosen not to sit at a table, not to make this about her. But when Charlie finished reading, she couldn't stop the tears. Her assistant offered a tissue, but Evelyn waved it away. Let them see her cry. Let them see her be human. As lunch ended, people didn't rush out. They lingered, finishing conversations. Someone helped Luke gather his things without being asked. Natural kindness, unpracticed. Ben stood with Charlie, ready to walk her back to the office where she'd wait until his shift ended. "Mr. Carter?" Evelyn approached. "Thank you, again. Thank you for giving us the chance to do it right." She looked around the room, at Rosa laughing with the IT director, at Darius explaining something with animated hands, at Luke standing confidently among a group of welders. "This is what I was so afraid of losing control of," she said quietly. "But it's better without my control, isn't it?" "Usually is." That afternoon the cafeteria returned to its normal rhythm, but something had shifted. The invisible lines weren't gone, but they'd blurred. People nodded at each other who'd never made eye contact before. Change, real change, starting with a single, shared meal. The bulletin board appeared on Tuesday. Nothing fancy, just cork and wood frame mounted near the coffee station. Rosa pinned the first story while the morning shift grabbed their caffeine. My abuela's kitchen had one rule, her neat handwriting read. Everyone who enters must either cook, taste, or tell a story. Nobody just watches. That's how you build family, and everyone contributes something. By Wednesday, 3 more stories had appeared. A retiree named Frank wrote in shaky cursive, "Came back yesterday just to eat lunch here. First time in 40 years I wanted to return to this place after clocking out. Sat with kids young enough to be my grandkids. They taught me what podcasts are. I told them about building this factory with my own hands. Fair trade." The Muslim temp, Aliyah, added hers Thursday. "During Ramadan, I don't eat lunch. But I started sitting with people anyway, just for the conversation. Maria from accounting learned why I fast. I learned about her daughter's quinceañera. Understanding happens over empty plates, too." Ben stood reading them Friday morning when Evelyn approached. "Mr. Carter, could we speak?" In her office, she gestured to a chair. "I want to offer you something, a new position. Community Liaison for Inclusion and Veterans Outreach." Ben shifted. "What would that mean exactly?" "You'd split time between the floor and our outreach programs, help us hire more veterans, build partnerships with disability organizations, basically make sure what happened in that cafeteria happens everywhere in this company." "Can I keep my work boots?" She smiled. "I'd be disappointed if you didn't, though you might need a suit jacket for some meetings." Ben thought of Charlie, of the stability this would mean. "When would I start?" "Monday. Same pay grade as middle management, full benefits, and you report directly to me." He extended his hand. "Then I accept." That evening, Ben called Rosa first. "Community liaison? Look at you getting fancy. Still going to eat lunch at the same tables?" "Better. Hey, we're celebrating tonight. That diner on 5th Street, 7 o'clock. Bring Charlie." The diner glowed warm against the November evening. Rosa had commandeered a long table in the back corner. Darius arrived carrying a cake box. Pastor Will brought his famous cornbread. Charlie bounced in her seat. "Dad got promoted. He's going to help veterans and still wear my boots," Ben finished, ruffling her hair. "The important part," Rosa laughed. They'd just ordered when Luke and Evelyn entered. Luke navigated confidently, cane sweeping. Evelyn looked different, jeans and a sweater instead of her usual sharp suits. "Room for 2 more?" she asked. Chairs scraped as everyone shifted. Luke ended up between Charlie and Darius. Evelyn sat across from Pastor Will, who poured her coffee without asking. "Mom never comes to places like this," Luke stage whispered to Charlie. "I can hear you," Evelyn said, but she was smiling. "And the meatloaf smells amazing." The food came family style. Platters of fried chicken, bowls of mashed potatoes, green beans swimming in butter. Hands reached across, plates passed around. Luke couldn't see the choreography, but he felt it in the rhythm of movement, the easy flow of sharing. "Tell them about the Braille menu idea," Darius prompted. Luke brightened. "The diner owner wants to make Braille menus, not just for me, for anyone who needs them." "That's how it spreads," Pastor Will said quietly. "One small act creates ripples." Rosa raised her water glass. "To ripples, then." "To ripples," they echoed. Dessert was Darius's cake. Chocolate with "Open Doors, Open Hearts" written in careful icing. "Charlie's idea," he admitted. "She designed the whole thing." Charlie beamed, chocolate already on her chin. "You know what I love about this?" Evelyn said suddenly. The table quieted. 6 months ago, I would have been terrified of this. Sitting in a diner, no agenda, no structure, just people. "What changed?" Rosa asked gently. Evelyn looked at Luke, then at Ben. "I learned that control and safety aren't the same thing. Luke is safer in a world where people see him as Luke, not as my blind son or the CEO's responsibility. Luke reached over and found his mother's hand. Plus, the food's way better here than at those fancy restaurants you like. Laughter rolled around the table, real laughter, not the careful kind that used to fill the cafeteria. "Ben's going to help other companies do this too," Charlie announced. "Open table programs everywhere." "One step at a time, kiddo," Ben said. "Why?" Charlie challenged. "Why not dream big?" Pastor Will chuckled, from the mouths of babes. "I'm not a baby," Charlie protested. I'm 10. "Ancient," Luke agreed solemnly. "Practically elderly." As they prepared to leave, Rosa hugged everyone. Darius shook hands all around. Pastor Will blessed them quietly, no grand words, just a simple hope for continued courage. Outside, Evelyn stopped Ben. "Monday morning, 9 o'clock. We'll go over your new responsibilities." "I'll be there." She started toward her car, then turned back. "Ben, that first day when you sat with Luke, I thought you were trying to make a point." "Maybe I was." "No," she shook her head. "You were just being decent. That's what scared me most. That simple decency could change everything." She walked away before he could respond. Charlie tugged his hand. "Dad, can we come back here next week?" "Yeah, baby, we can." They drove home through quiet streets, Charlie humming Luke's melody, the one he called home. Ben realized that's what they'd built, not a program or a policy, but a place where people could belong. Monday would bring new challenges. But tonight, his daughter was humming, his friends were laughing somewhere in the night, and a blind boy no longer ate alone. The ripples spread outward, endless and sure. Friday afternoon sunlight streamed through the cafeteria windows, warming the tables where lunch crowds gathered. 3 months had passed since the relaunch, and the rhythm of open table had settled into something natural, unremarkable in the best way. Luke sat at his usual spot by the window, but nothing else about the scene resembled those early, lonely days. A welder named Tommy was halfway through a story about his grandson's first fishing trip. 2 accounting clerks laughed at something on Luke's left. Even Marla from HR had pulled up a chair. Her rigid posture softened into something almost relaxed. "So the kid drops the whole tackle box in the lake," Tommy continued, his weathered hands gesturing. "Everything. Hooks, sinkers, the works." Luke grinned. "Did you go in after it?" "Water was freezing, but yeah, couldn't disappoint the kid." The beauty was in how ordinary it had become. People drifted to Luke's table the same way they'd stop at any other, grabbing an empty seat, joining mid-conversation, leaving when their break ended. No fanfare, no assignments, just choice. Ben watched from across the table, his sandwich forgotten. Charlie sat beside him, showing Darius her latest creation, flashcards with Braille on one side, printed letters on the other. "See, this one says, 'Friend,'" she explained, running her fingers over the raised dots. "I'm teaching my whole class." "You're going to put me out of a job," Darius teased. "Professional Braille consultant, age 10. 11 next month," Charlie corrected. At the next table, Rosa held court with 3 new hires, explaining the union benefits while somehow also giving relationship advice to the youngest one. Her voice carried, warm and certain. "Trust takes time," she was saying. "You can't rush it. Right, Ben?" Ben nodded, understanding she meant more than just romance. The trust in this room had been earned slowly, one lunch at a time. Evelyn appeared at his shoulder carrying a cup of tea. She'd started taking her afternoon break in the cafeteria instead of her office. Today she wore a simple blue cardigan, her CEO armor set aside. "May I?" "All was room," Ben said, shifting his tray. She sat carefully, like someone still learning to be casual. "The board meeting was this morning." "And?" "Unanimous approval for nationwide expansion, 20 facilities by year end." She sipped her tea. "They want you to lead the training team." Charlie looked up from her flashcards. "Dad's going to be famous." "Dad's going to be tired," Ben corrected, but he was smiling. "You changed us," Evelyn said quietly. Not to Ben specifically, but to the table, the room, the moment. All of you. We just sat down, Rosa called over. That's all anybody did. No. Evelyn shook her head. You stood up. There's a difference. Luke pushed back from the table. Hey, who wants to hear something? A cheer went up. It had become tradition. Friday afternoon, Luke would play something on the old piano they'd moved into the corner, sometimes classical pieces he'd learned by ear, sometimes pop songs that made the younger workers sing along. Today he made his way to the piano with steady confidence. His cane folded into his pocket with practiced ease. He settled onto the bench, fingers finding position. This is called home, he announced, though everyone knew it by now. The melody started simple, single notes that rang clear in the busy space. Then his left hand joined, adding depth. It wasn't complicated music. That wasn't the point. It was warm and sure, like Rosa's laugh, or Charlie's questions, or the weight of Ben's steady presence. A few people hummed along, then more. Not performing, just participating. The sound filled the cafeteria, imperfect, human, real. Ben noticed the details, how naturally the lunch supervisor touched Luke's shoulder in passing, how the janitor paused to listen while sweeping, how even the skeptics from accounting had stopped calling it that inclusion thing and started calling it lunch. It's working, Evelyn murmured beside him. Because it's not a program anymore. It's just us. Charlie left her flashcards to stand beside Luke. She couldn't see the keys, but she could feel the music through the piano's body. Luke shifted slightly, making room, never missing a note. The song ended with the same simplicity it began. Applause scattered through the room, not orchestrated, just appreciation between friends. Luke stood and bowed slightly, grinning. Same time next week? Wouldn't miss it, someone called. As people filtered back to work, the cafeteria maintained its new rhythm. Luke returned to his table where fresh faces had gathered. A maintenance supervisor was explaining how the building's ventilation system worked. Luke listened intently, asking questions that showed he understood the geography of sound in ways others missed. Ben started to clear his tray, but Evelyn touched his arm. Thank you, she said. Not as your employer, not as Luke's mother, just as, she paused, searching for words, as your neighbor. Ben understood. They were all neighbors now in the way that mattered, people who noticed each other, who made room, who refused to let anyone eat alone. Charlie tugged his sleeve. Dad, can I stay 5 more minutes? Luke's going to teach me the left-hand part. 5 minutes. He watched his daughter run back to the piano, where Luke was already repositioning on the bench. Around them, the cafeteria hummed with its daily business. Nothing special except that it was. Every table full, every voice heard, every person seen. This was home. Not the building or the company or even the tables, but this, the stubborn, ordinary kindness of people who'd learned to choose each other. The afternoon sun caught the windows, filling the space with gold. If you enjoyed the story, I hand-picked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.